Goedenavond allemaal, welkom terug bij Saint Mac on Air, een nieuwe uitzending. Nieuwe gast, maar de gast heeft net laten weten dat hij iets later is. Nu, geen probleem, ik heb de verantwoordelijke, of de invoerder zal ik maar zeggen, er terug bij gehaald. Hij is nogal eens aan het bod geweest, dus bij deze verwelkom ik alvast Johan. Goedenavond Johan.
Hallo, goedenavond. Gunther.
Dag Johan. Johan, jij bent een beetje verantwoordelijk op het moment voor het importeren van Stauning. Wat heeft u bezield?
Wat heeft mij bezield? Ik denk dat vele mensen mij kennen uit de whiskywereld en weten dat ik nog met een aantal whiskies en whiskymerken en voor een paar distillerijen gewerkt heb in de tijd. En ik denk dat het zeer leuk is om een missie te brengen voor onze Belgische vrienden, om te laten zien en proeven dat goede single malt whisky, of goede whisky in het algemeen, niet noodzakelijk van Schotland hoeft te komen.
Nee.
Natuurlijk hebben we het daar allemaal ontdekt. Is Schotland ook niet weg te denken uit de whiskywereld en alles wat met whisky te maken heeft, uiteraard. En blijft een van de belangrijkste landen, maar ik denk daar rond dat er in elk werelddeel en in elk land, mag ik misschien wel zeggen, tegenwoordig wel whisky gemaakt wordt.
Mm-hmm.
En zo ben ik ook in Denemarken terechtgekomen. Waar er ook een vriendengroep is, een 9-tal vrienden, die eigenlijk hetzelfde idee hadden als wat ik al jaren heb, alleen ik heb het nog niet zelf gerealiseerd. Maar die dachten, waarom is niet zelf whisky gaan distilleren?
Ja.
En in Denemarken was er nog niet echt een whisky op de markt. Dus ze dachten van, laten we de koppen eens bij elkaar steken. En eens kijken of dat we daar medestanders voor vinden.
Ja, tuurlijk. Nu, ik heb me goed voorbereid. Meer als andere keer zelfs nog. Ik denk, het is een Deense. Ik was niet bekend. Het opzoekwerk heeft opgeleverd. Er zouden 10 distilleerderijen in Denemarken zijn. Waarvan 2 grote, Brownstein en, ik weet niet of ik het goed uitspreek, en een Stauning. Ja, de rest zijn wel degelijk aanwezig, maar beduidend minder. Is dan de Stauning, is het dan gekomen omdat je zegt van... ik heb al foto's gezien. De gasten zullen zo dadelijk ook te zien krijgen zodra Alex hier is. Maar heeft dat u over de streep getrokken? Een splinternieuwe distilleerderij?
Nee, niet meteen. Eigenlijk meer het verhaal. De splinternieuwe distilleerderij is er veel later gekomen, of een paar jaar later. Het was eigenlijk wat mij over de streep trok. Enerzijds het feit dat mensen waren die helemaal niks met whiskywereld te maken hadden, maar die wel het idee hadden van, kijk, als we het doen, willen we het goed doen. Een beetje het verhaal van, vroeger, de Belgische distilleerderij waar ik voor gewerkt heb. We gaan een potstil kopen.
Mm-hmm.
En ze hebben die dan nog gekocht in Spanje, want dat was goedkoper, om maar aan te geven hoe beperkt het budget was. Ze hadden ook niet echt allemaal kennis, dus ze zijn beginnen verdiepen in dat verhaal.
Okay.
Dus eigenlijk door een man zoals Jim Murray, die in zijn Whisky Bible een lyrisch verhaal neerpent over de New Make die ze toen hadden, want ze hadden eigenlijk nog geen whisky. Dat eigenlijk heel het verhaal of alles van de distilleerderij er een beetje een stroomversnelling geraakt is.
Mm-hmm.
En ze zeiden ook van, wij kennen nog niet veel van whisky. Whiskyfestivals, we hadden daar al wel eens van gehoord en we wilden natuurlijk naartoe gaan en aanwezig zijn. En plots stonden wij daar met ons product, New Make, want we hadden zelfs nog geen whisky. Dus dat was zeer raar voor ons, zeer onwennig. Dat is een beetje allemaal in een stroomversnelling geraakt, geëxplodeerd eigenlijk.
Ja.
En dat is ook aan de oren gekomen van een Venturi, investeringsgroep van Diageo, die ze toen zelfs niet kenden, of mensen waar ze niet goed van wisten wie dat waren, waar ze dan plots een afspraak mee kregen, of een uitnodiging van kregen om eens af te spreken in Kopenhagen. Zijn daar naartoe gegaan zonder echt te weten wie ze voor hen gingen hebben. En zo zijn ze dan plots...
Nu, ik zie dat Alex ondertussen er ook bij gekomen is. Dus without further ado, please welcome Alex. Hi, Alex.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, Alex.
Welcome.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. We just started a few minutes ago, so I'm very happy to see you now. It's our first encounter, so nice to meet you.
You too. Nice to see you. I hope I'm going through clear enough. You can hear me.
You're coming through very clear. So
Super. Fantastic.
Johan started already with telling us about your distillery, how you became from a small distillery to, I can say, a big distillery at the moment. But my first question is something like, I'm a whiskey enthusiast, and of course, like most of us, we all know Scottish whiskey, and we all know the Irish whiskey, but Danish whiskey, it's not it's not our scene. So, is there a difference, or do we have to think it's more or less the same, or what is different from Danish whiskey with Scottish whiskey?
Well, I would like to say there's a lot in difference from Danish to Scottish whiskey, but as you probably know, as whiskey nerds, whiskey is made the same way. Either you are in Scotland or in Ireland, or there's some difference, I know, but it's mostly the same. But what we have done in Stauning Whiskey, we've tried to go back to basics. So we actually try to make a whiskey like the Scotch did a long time ago. So when we started in 2005, Martin, my colleague and co-founder, he got the idea to making the Danish whiskey distillery, or the Danish whiskey, and he heard it was difficult to make a good whiskey. It's easy to make whiskey, but it's difficult to make a good whiskey. Mm-hmm. So when we met up, we discussed this subject, and nobody of us had tried to make whiskey before, or make beer, or anyway make spirits. So it's quite new for all of us. And the best way of learning is doing. So we Googled, how do you make whiskey? And you had 10 million hits on Google on how to make whiskey. And then we chose the most difficult one. And the most difficult one was how you did it way, way back in time. So one of my other co-founders, he's called Mogens. He's the father of Martin, and he's a butcher. And he had an old butchery, an abattoir, where you had the fridge, a very big fridge, where we could do the floor malting. So we agreed to do it like basics, like you did 200 years ago when you make whiskey. That's the easiest way of learning, is doing it from basics, because we didn't know anything about whiskey. So we tried to grow our own grain. One of the other founders, his father was a farmer. So we asked him, can you sow some grain, and can we grow it and take care of it and try to do it like they did in the old day? Can we then do floor malting? We could do that in the fridge. So really keep an eye on it. Try to do all in detail, and we could use the old oven where you smoke the meat in the butchery. We could smoke the grain. We wanted to make a whiskey similar to Ardbeg from 1977, because that was the best whiskey we had ever tasted, ever. So we said, let's try to make an Ardbeg from 1977. So again,
is
back
that
to
your year of birth?
Sorry?
1977, is that your year of birth?
No, I'm 1975.
Okay.
That's also a good Ardbeg, also a good year. So a peated whiskey, a smoky whiskey, that was our idea, because again, a non-peated whiskey was not as difficult as a peated whiskey. So we needed to have all the different processes involved in making the whiskey. Don't jump the fence where it's low, jump it where it's high. That was kind of our idea. So we did the smoking. We found some local peat, burnt the peat, dried the grain. We had a meat grinder to grind the grain.
Okay.
And I cannot say that was a good idea, because they was terrible. You can imagine stainless steel grinding grain gets pretty hot, and the sugar in the grain becomes into caramel. The caramel, all the small holes in the meat grinder will get full of caramel. So we had to dismantle, and do like this in all the holes. Then we could start all over again. So it took like hours to do the grinding of the grain. Did the mashing, also like the old ways of mashing. When you see our wort, it's a super unclear wort, as you had in the old days. Today, when you do whiskey, you have a clear wort. Most distillery with a clear wort, like a beer, like a pilsner, when you look at it. But if you go 50, 60 years back in time, you will have an old, really unclear, thick kind of wort. That's what we got too. So if you go to our distilleries, and we've had many old Scotch distillers come to our distillery, when they look at our washbacks, they say, this is how it looked in the old days. When you made Scotch whiskey, it looked like that. Today, it doesn't look like that. So we try to do it like the old days, by hand, simple, old school methods. So when we made the first batch, this smoky, peated, new make, we were lucky to meet Jim Murray, the writer of the Whiskey Bible. When he tasted it, he said, "This reminds me of Ardbeg from the end period of the 70s. We were just like,
mission accomplished.
Yeah, exactly. We got it. And of course, you can compare because this was new make.
Yeah.
But I think the essential part of this is like it tasted of the new make you had in the old days. Mm-hmm. So, and the old days kind of new make, if you go into the old books and read about whiskey, you'll find out it was very sweet, very oily, very fruity. So in the 60s, 70s, I think they changed from direct. We also did direct heat, open fire stills, pot stills. They changed the ways of making whiskey in the 60s, 70s, I think, as I remember, to steam heated stills. And when you read about the ways of production, the people working in the production, especially in the Scottish distilleries, the stories were that they didn't like the new make as well as before, because it wasn't fruity and sweet as the new way of distilling. That's not the same as saying that new whiskey from the 70s to now is not as good as the old whiskey, but it's different. Yeah. So you will see when you taste our wort, when you taste our new make, it's very similar to how they did it, 100 years ago, 60 years ago.
Mm-hmm. You told us that you did only some Google search, read some books, but I guess you also visit some distilleries in Scotland to see how they do it, or to hear all special techniques, or
just Google.
Well, to be honest, we didn't go to Scotland.
Just Google. Great.
We had in the local area where we are in Denmark is at the west coast, and the west coast is kind of the outskirts of Denmark. And previously there was a lot of home distilling in Denmark, like Norway, Sweden, everybody else, where else in the world. But that area, there was a lot of old guys that knew a lot about home distilling and making beer. So we contacted some of these old guys and said, so how do we make beer, for example? Let's learn it from scratch, making a beer, and then let's just learn about distilling. So it was learning by doing. We didn't go to Scotland, we didn't go to Ireland. I went to Sluis in Germany.
Yeah.
But that was to learn about, they had some casks we wanted to look at, some Missouri white oak, how that tasted in a European kind of whiskey. So there was a bit of learning from that. But so we actually didn't visit any distilleries before starting up. It was I think in 2013 or 14, we went to Scotland to learn some. But that was 4 years after when we actually started the distillery.
Yeah.
So,
you started in 2006. The distillery started in 2006. You sent me some photos from the new distillery and the old. This one is the old distillery.
That's the old. Yeah, that's from the farm. Yeah.
And this one is where you're talking about earlier on.
Yes, that's also the old floor malting. This is not the fridge. This is also from the farm. We had It's so 2000. This is from the distillery we made in 2009. So from 2007 to 2009, we converted an old farm into a distillery. Before that, we were in the butchery. I don't think we have
No.
pictures.
So actually, you had 3 distilleries for Stauning, if I'm correct.
Yes, you're correct. Absolute correct.
Okay. Not many distilleries can say we had 3 distilleries in about 20 years. So
No, but it's the same place. So the butchery is the abattoir is about 500 meters, 800 meters from the current location of the distillery. The old farm.
Well.
So on the right side, you'll see the red building. That's the old farm where we had the second distillery. And on the left side, you will see the third distillery. We still use the old farm, but that's for a shop and for guided tours, for tasting room, all that.
So no more malting in the old part, or
no,
anything else?
So the malting is done in the new distillery.
So this is a photo of the old malting floor?
Exactly. Yes.
And comparison with this one?
That's the new one. Yeah.
It's quite different. It's the least we can say.
It's so the old floor malting, we had 2 floors, and they were 2.5 meters wide and about 20 meters long. So 2 of those. In the new distillery, we have 4 floors for floor malting, and they are 5 meters wide, per floor, and about 60 meters long. So 5 times 60 times 4.
Okay.
So we have 2,500 square meters of floor malting right now.
Yeah.
So all is floor malted. Both the rye and the barley we floor malt at the distillery.
It's a pretty big distillery at the moment. If I look at the pictures.
Yeah. So and on the right side, the low building with the glass.
It's the old one.
That's so you have the red building at the far right side. Mm-hmm. That's the old building. Then the next building is our floor malting. So you have the where the light
maybe
is.
This one is easier.
Yeah. So the right side is our floor malting. We have 2 buildings. You have one. You don't have the far right building. We have another building on where and the right side, where the chimney is. And now that's an old picture. So we actually have a chimney now. That's the kiln with the small window at the ground. And the third building we have there with the big window in the middle. That's our fermentation and mashing. And then the left side you have our still house with the 24 pot stills. Yes, exactly. So we have 16 wash stills up here, and if you go down the stairs in the end, we have 8 more spirit stills. They are all, right, left. So our spirit safes, so 2 spirit safes, 2 lines of spirit stills, and then we have 4 sets of 4 wash stills up behind. And all is direct heated to open fire, flame under 24 stills. So you can imagine the heat in that distillery. It's quite hot.
And how many people are working there in this distillery? Because it looks like there have to be many people working.
We are, I think we're 21 people at the distillery right now. We have 8 people in production, and the rest is in guided tours and administration, economics.
So the most part is fully automatic, the distillation process.
No, actually, it's still so the floor malting is still done. So we still move it by machines. We drive machines, the grain, and the only thing that's automatic in there is the machine that turns the grain. Then we have to remove it, put it into a kind of a box where we can transport it into the kiln. So a bit more has become automatic, but we actually, when we built this distillery, the ambition was also to have a process where you use your hands. So we always have kind of a process where you have to have a person that goes in and check it out, measure the temperatures, taste the grain, starts the fire when we do the smoking of the grain. So there is of course more automatic in there, but it's actually just more of the old. So more stills, bigger floors, but you still have to move it now by a truck with a big shovel in front of it instead of a small shovel. Yeah,
it's a bit easier.
Yeah, a bit easier. Yeah.
A bit more modern. Johan presented me your bottlings before, a few weeks ago actually, and I tried them. I tried them all, and I tried them all more times, and I was really impressed about these two.
Aha, yes, yeah.
They were really special.
Yeah. Curious and Bastard. They are part of our research series. They're Curious on the right side, the black one, is a new make on malted rye, floor malted rye that's been peat smoked.
Mm-hmm.
And we also use malted barley. So it's 30% malted barley and 70% malted rye. Then we peat smoke it all. And it was voted world's best new make last year in the World Whiskies Awards. It was quite a surprise, actually. we didn't expect that. And it's I actually think it's very easy to drink. When you've tasted new make, you get quite surprised about this one.
Yeah.
It's actually more like drinking mezcal. So the kind of peated smoked tequila type, of spirits.
And it tasted more aged than it actually is because it's new made. But if I hadn't seen the color, they could have told me it's a 3-year-old whiskey.
Okay, interesting. That's cool. It's quite fun. Actually, I was at a whiskey fair, a spirits fair in Athens 2 years ago. We did a version also 2 years ago, and there was a guy that made mezcal, and I actually tried. I poured some in a glass and I gave it to him, and I said, "Can you guess what this is?" And he said, "Oh, I'm guessing it's quite good mezcal." So that was actually a manufacturer of mezcal that guessed on it was a mezcal. That's quite special. And the other one, the Bastard, is a rye whiskey, and it's been aged in virgin casks. And then after a couple of years,
I'm drinking at the moment.
I drink at the moment, and then it's been, and then after that, it's we move it to a mezcal cask.
Mm-hmm.
And then we age it in a mezcal cask, so it gets some of these fruity, smoky flavors from the mezcal. Some like it, some don't. I think it's a fantastic whiskey. That one, I really enjoy it.
It's completely different.
Yeah. I just had 2 weeks ago. I had a whiskey tasting with Dramas Club in the U.S. In New York, and a good description was that it reminded. And making rye whiskey for Americans is quite special because they are, they're very American. They said it reminded them of a mix of a single malt whiskey and a rye whiskey because it was so easy to drink. It was not dry and spicy. It was more smooth, more almost like dark rum in character, but you still have the dustiness from the rye in it. So a mix between single malt and rye. It's easy drinking rye, and often you don't, unless you're really hardcore whiskey drinker. There's not a lot of people enjoying straight rye whiskies, but I actually think that one you can enjoy straight.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Johan, you wanted to ask something.
Yeah,
Sorry?
I was thinking. What I was thinking was how you come to an idea to make malted rye, malted barley, and go to mix it. And not only mix it to something like you do today, because the first question of Gunther is the question we get every day, every client we visit with, it's new, it's from Denmark, why should we buy a Danish whiskey?
Yeah.
The answer is very easy. I don't have to say something. I open the bottle, let them taste, and then they say, wow. So that's the reason why. but yeah, you start from a complete new thing, new idea. That's also very nice to have from me because it's very good and it's very different.
Yeah.
But how you start, how you do that, how you create something, because when I also worked in a distillery, when you start off in the very beginning, you don't know what you get at the end of you can get to put or blend in a bottle. So
Yeah.
that's quite a job.
I think it is difficult, as you say, when you start up. What will you get? It's actually impossible to know when you start making something, especially whiskey, to know what you will get in 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 years, because it develops so much. And when we started up, we didn't know what we were going to get. It was just trial tests, see what we can get. And then after some time, you try to develop and go in directions. And what we found out is that we do not want to make Scotch whiskey. We do not want to make American whiskey or Japanese whiskey, Irish whiskey, because I love Scotch whiskey and I love American whiskey. Why should a Danish distillery try to copy making a Scotch whiskey? There's plenty of fantastic Scotch whiskey out there. There's plenty of Japanese, Irish or American types of whiskey. We want to create our own type of whiskey with our type of flavor. And if people don't like that because they think it's too different from Scotch, then they can drink Scotch or Irish or American.
So that's the reason why you did a mezcal finish.
For example, we also one of the other things we are playing around with is vermouth, so vermouth casks, and we've done a rye whiskey that's been aged in a vermouth cask, and some will say it tastes like a lot of vermouth, because that sweet, and we say, well, when you drink that straight, it's like drinking, when you drink a cask strength rye aged in a vermouth cask, it tastes like a cask strength Manhattan cocktail. I find that super interesting. I find it fun, and what we do is actually trying to have fun. We're not trying to copy something or making a certain type of, trying to make an Ardbeg, for example. We did that at the beginning, but Ardbeg is a great whiskey. Nobody wants to copy making an Ardbeg. They should just continue making their good Ardbegs, or like Bullen or Lefroy or whatever out there. So we need to find our path and find the crowd that likes our whiskey.
Yeah,
that takes time. I know you won't get them like this, but in time, people will maybe start liking Stauning for what it is. We hope so. So we are a young distillery. Thank you. We are a young distillery, and we need to find our path, and we are trying to do that now.
And you're still searching.
We're still searching. We're still evolving. We're only, as you said, the first new make was made in 2006. We're quite young. We have 200 years something to practice.
In the photos I saw, the environment, because it's great to live, but it's strange. One photo in particular, it's the embassy bar.
Yeah.
And I noticed a lot of people wearing boots. There was another photo as well, and there was a lot of people wearing boots. Is it that different over there? Are you located nearby the farm? Because the old distillery was a farm distillery. But I presume you're not walking into into the farm or on the whatever.
No. Well, actually, no, that's just a coincidence. The bar, the picture we have from the bar, is actually in a totally other place in Denmark.
Okay.
It was at a music festival. We had the bar in Fyn. It's an island in Denmark. Now, the west coast is it's flat, it's farmland, and it's near the sea. So there's no special reasons to be careful. Or
it was just a coincidence.
It's just a coincidence. But it's a special area because it's so flat. I guess you know that from where you're living. Also, flat areas.
Yeah.
but it's very flat in the west coast. There's no hills, there's nothing, and it is mostly farmland we have up there. No big cities. We have, I think we have 1 kilometer for the fjord that is by the sea. This is the area in Denmark where we have the second most tourists. We have a lot of summer houses out there. Copenhagen is number 1. West Coast is number 2. Half of the guests we have at that distillery, we have about 20,000 guests per year at the distillery, is from Germany. So all the Germans come up at the summer houses at the West Coast, near the sea. We have white sand. I've been to the Belgic West Coast also. It's very similar to Belgium and the sand dunes. And I think a lot of people from Belgium will find it very, very like home when you come to this area in Denmark.
You're not selling your place. It's like home.
It's like home. I would say it's a beautiful area, but very different from many places.
And the weather, is it quite similar like here, or is it more colder? Because when I think about Scandinavian and Denmark, I think it's colder. So does that have an impact on the whiskey?
Has an impact on the aging, of course. Our Angel's years and our development, our aging is very similar to Scotland in how many percent of alcohol that disappears every year. Slow aging again. I'm not sure if there's a lot of talking about the environment, how that will impact the whiskey. When we actually found the farm, when we bought the farm, it was a beautiful place, and I guess like 2 weeks later we came again to look at the place that I found of us, and we found out that it's only fields, farmers' fields around us. This was the springtime, and they put all the fertilizer on the ground, so it smelled awful when we came back for the second time. Just like, oh no! So I guess the good taste of our whiskey was from this shit from the pigs in the farm.
Okay, good selling point. Good selling
that
point.
typical smell.
Mark has a question. He's on a family visit, but he still asks questions. That's a good thing. Welcome, Mark. What made you decide to release 50 centiliter bottles instead of 70?
Yeah, there was 2 reasons. In the beginning, we didn't have a lot of whiskey. So we had we didn't have a lot of whiskey. It's only a few thousand liters. And 50 cl bottles, then you have more bottles. When you're a new distillery, you want to get as much money as possible. And so 50 cl, we could have the price a bit higher in the ratio compared to the 70 cl bottle. In the beginning, we also wanted to have people to taste so many of our whiskeys as possible. And 70 cl bottle takes a longer time to drink than a 50 cl bottle. So we wanted people to buy, for example, 2 50 cl bottles instead of just 1 70 cl bottle. And I can reveal that we're going to 70 cl later this year.
Okay. Yeah. So it has nothing to do with taxes in Denmark or something like that?
No, I think, the taxes are high in Denmark, but you have many other countries where they are similar high. So no, that was not because of that. Actually, in Denmark, we have a discussion about the alcohol taxes, and they want to lower the taxes in Denmark. And when you ask, me, I don't have a problem with that. If they were to raise the taxes, okay with me, because in Denmark we have the younger people in Denmark are actually the people in Europe that drinks the most. So 14, 15, 16-year-old Danes drink a lot of alcohol. That's a big problem in Denmark, and it's mainly due to the lower priced alcohol that they drink so much. So, and when the krone of our how much the taxes on our bottles won't change that much if it's 450 or 455, but when it is a 100 kroner bottle and you put 5 kroner on top of that, it's a bigger difference.
Yeah.
So in our world, the taxes can go
lift it up whenever they want.
And it's as you probably know, whiskey is a product you enjoy. You don't do like this. You actually try to sit and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's better to do that. Your bottles at the moment, they look, the most of them, except of the 2 special ones, the research years, they all look like this. What's the idea about it? It's just to make things clear, because everything is very well noted on the ticket, so you can see a lot of the distillery, of the spirit, what is in it, how old is it. It's mostly, but I noticed there was a lot mentioned on the bottle what most distilleries don't do.
Are you talking about dates and what?
Yeah.
Well, so when we started up, we have young products. We're not an old distillery, and we noticed that there were a lot of distilleries not revealing the age of their alcohol.
Yeah.
And when we talked about this, we were like, we want to be honest about things. We don't want to hide away things, because it's a young whiskey. So actually our first whiskey, and it was actually not old enough to be called a whiskey because it was only 2 years old, we actually called it young rye. And people said, you are crazy. You cannot call a product young, because in the whiskey world, the only thing that matters is old. People don't want to buy young products, they want to buy old products. And we said, we don't care. We don't want to hide it away and try to cheat people into thinking it's older. If they like it, they drink it. If they don't like it, buy something else. We are not trying to say we are 25-year-old distiller or whiskey. We have 3-year or 4-year-old whiskey, and we think it's amazing. Still, that is 3 or 4 years. It's more vibrant. There's a lot of power in our whiskeys. And often when you see some whiskeys, they kind of go over the hill and they become boring and too woody or not vibrant, and but a lot of stuff's going on. So we state everything that people want to know on our bottles, and we will actually do more of that. We have new bottles coming up this autumn, and we'll actually put more information in our bottles, so the nerds really can dig into what is this all about. So casks, how long time that's been on a special cask. If it's 2 casks, how long has it been on the first cask and second cask? We want to put everything in there. And so information, we like information.
Okay. Johan, question for you, actually. What are you drinking? I noticed you were pouring some liquor in your glass, but yes. I presume it's Stauning?
I was trying again the Curious.
The Curious.
The new make. Yeah, there are not many distilleries who will commercialize a new make spirit, and it's not that easy to sell it in Belgium, except from this one. So when people, I don't know why, but also the bottle, it's very funny. So it's also very good. Smooth, like you told me, and that was a little bit a question from my side. You talk about we want to make a Danish whiskey. Today we have the Curious, we have the Bastard, I have the Peated, the Chaos, and the Rye. But is there anyone that you can tell, if we talk about a Danish whiskey, that's the one it should be like standard for future? Or like you told us also, we are still searching, maybe you're still searching for the standard Danish one, I don't know.
Well, we still have a lot of experiments going on at the distillery, and for instance, one of the things we've done 2 years ago, we had Dave Broom, the whiskey writer, coming to Stauning. He's now been at the distillery 2 times. Last time he was there for 3 days, enjoying whiskey, traveling the West Coast, experimenting, going into our warehouse, tasting and all that. We did a lot of experiments together with him. And what we found out is that we did a peated whiskey, and we did a heather smoked whiskey. What I don't know the word in your country for heather. Yeah.
Oi.
Okay. And so we made 2 different kinds of smoked whiskey. And the heather is very sweet in the smoke. And we guess it's because of the purple flowers in the heather. Like heather honey you also have. And the peat was dry, kind of cigar, ashtray smoke. And very simple, both of them.
My bad.
Heidi, okay. Listen, in Germany it's Heide, I think. Yeah.
Same here. It must.
Heide, yeah. When we mix them together, it really, so 1 + 1 normally gets 2, but when we did that, we had 1 + 1 going to 3. So it just grew in flavor. And Dave Broom, he was just like, what is going on here? This is really fascinating. So the sweetness from the heather really complements the peat smoke, and it just grows and get very deep, complex in the flavors. So we started experimenting with that, and now at our new kiln, our new oven, we actually mix Heide and the heather and peat together in the oven, in the kiln. So we smoke it, our grain, with both parts in the same. So instead of vatting together after it's been in the cask, we do it in the beginning now. I think that's very special for us, that we want to create this kind of local peat and local heather and put it into whiskey. Then we've been experimenting with the casks, and I don't think we will go for Danish oak. We've heard that it doesn't suit whiskies very well. It's very slow growing oak. There's a lot of bitterness in the oak, so it shouldn't work that well. But what we've tried to do is, for example, we have in the south part of Denmark, we have a cherry wine producer. So red cherries, and they age their cherry wine in casks. So for some time now, we've been trying to test the cherry wine together with the whiskey, how that tastes. And the first experiment was called Kiesp, and it was not super. It was okay. It was fun, but it was not like yes. And Dave Broom, when we sat with him, he said he was actually convinced it was because it was 2 young casks. It was wine casks from France that they put their cherry wine on. So we've bought sherry wine, so old sherry wine casks from Spain, brought them to the winery. They now have been aging cherry wine in sherry casks. Then we'll get it and try to age our whiskey, the smoked heather and peat smoked whiskey in these cherry casks. And I really expect a lot of that. We did one test, and it's called røg. A Danish word for smoke is røg. And it's probably the best whiskey we've ever made. And so now we're trying to develop on this one. That will probably be our signature kind of smoked whiskey. And then the rye will be the second one. In Denmark, we eat a lot of rye bread, Schwarzbrot, like in Germany, rye bread. Way back 200 years ago, there was a lot of Danes and Germans and Swedes and Norwegians that went to the US. And what they brought was rye. So the European rye is actually what started the rye whiskey in the US. So somehow we're taking back the rye to Denmark now, making the Danish rye whiskey. We're claiming the rye.
It's ours.
Yes, ours.
Could be the standard for the future, or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So that would probably be the two Danish versions. Yeah.
Okay. There's another question. How are you? What kind of warehouses do you have? Dunnage, pallets, wanking, high air conditioned?
So we have two times. We have the new warehouse is pallets. So because it's easier to stack and control in a warehouse, easier to move around with our what we call forklift. And then we have we call racks also. So we have racks and like that exactly. Yeah. And that's that warehouse. That's the warehouse number 1, and that's for our testing casks. So all our special versions, testing, playing around, will be in that one, and another one that also have racks. And then we have a third warehouse that is pallets. And later this year, we'll start up on the 4th warehouse that will also be pallets.
How many cars are there at the moment? More or less?
Oof, that was
more or less.
We have some thousands, but I can't remember how many. It's
1,000 is a big number.
Yeah, it is, and we produce. Last year we produced 180,000 liters. This year we will produce 350,000 liters. And then we've been producing, before this, and in 3-4 years we'll be producing about 1 million liters per year. So we need some space.
I did some reading, and the maximum capacity of the distillery at this moment is 900,000 liters pure alcohol. Is that correct? A year?
No. So the 900,000 liters is actually 64% alcohol. So it's when it's in a cask. So it's several hundred. But that's not completely true, because we've been, after we started up the new distillery, the new stills, we had a lot of problems in the beginning. Everybody thinks it's so easy. You have 4-5 stills, you make some that's a bit bigger, you make more of them. Easy. No, not easy. It took about half a year to get the flavors, control over the flavors and the production. The copper is different, so it reacts different to the fire, the direct heat. It burned very quickly. We have much bigger washbacks. The fermentation was different. So there was everything, changed when we started the new distillery. It took half a year to change the production. But now we were able to actually do it better. So now we've actually increased the yield from the old to the new. So we will go over 1 million liters per year, and this is compared to a number that's about 750,000 liters, 100% pure alcohol. So now will be over 1 million. So it's actually quite a development we've done lately.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier, but the question is back. What's the angel share in Denmark? It's more or less same like Scotland, you said. So
it's between 2 and 3% per year.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Similar.
not a lot.
Okay. About the founders. These are the founders. I thought, when I heard this, thousands of guys who started out the Stauning Distillery, I thought it will all be very young people, because you're about 44, 45 years old.
Yeah,
so
45.
it will be his friends, but there are some older guys. Are these the dads, the butcher?
Yes. So at the far left, you have number 2 from the left. He's called Mogens, with a red and white shirt, and he's the butcher. And he's now not working at the distillery anymore. He's retired. So he's bought himself a camper van and is driving around and enjoying life together with his wife. And on the right side, the far right side next to me, we have Henning. And Henning is he's the mother's brother. So some of the founders are, Lasse and Simon, and Lasse and Jesper and Martin is 3 brothers. It's their mother's brother. So Henning at the right side, and he's actually being retired this year. So November he will stop working in Stauning Whiskey too. If he'll buy a camper van, I don't know. He's been talking about it. I don't know what it is about these camper vans, but maybe he'll drive around Scotland or Ireland and taste whiskey.
So it's quite friends and family.
Yeah.
Basic.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. It's you don't have to answer if you want, but when you start a distillery, it's not easy to find money. And I don't think you I hope you are now, but I don't think so. But you're not rich, I can imagine. So at the start. So how do you do it? You go for the bank and you say, we are in Denmark. Let's build the distillery.
It's been a long process. In the beginning, we actually we took some personal loans to start up the small whiskey distillery.
So no crowdfunding.
Sorry?
No crowdfunding or something like that.
No. So in the beginning, it was not a lot of money for the first distillery. There was kind of pocket money to buy some stills and start in the butchery. We compared it to, instead of playing golf or handball or football, you could start a whiskey distillery. And the whiskey distillery is just more fun, much more fun. You get drunk.
Yeah.
And second time in 2009, before that, 2007, we looked to get some more money for the farm, to buy the farm and start the real distillery. And we went to 10, 11 banks, as I remember. It was Martin and I that went to these banks. We had made this prospect about making a whiskey. We met Jim Murray, and he said, "You're going to make the best whiskey in the world." And we were like, "Oh, fantastic! Yeah, perfect. Let's write it down." So we made this paper and went to the banks, and we said, "So we're going to make the best whiskey in the world." And they were like,
Maybe says it.
they were laughing and laughing and laughing. It was so funny, And we got a lot of, and they said, "So when are you going to earn some money?" And we said, "Well, in 7-8 years' time, we're going to get some income." They're like, forget it. That's a bad idea. So we had to go back to our girlfriends and wives and say to them, "So we need to borrow some more money personally." So we did that. And then we can go to a bank and say, "Now we have 1.5 million kroners, that's about 200,000 euro, personally loans. Can you maybe loan us some extra money for the building?" So they did that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they said, "We'll loan you the money for the building, and then you have the money for equipment and for starting up the distillery." And then they said, "When you go bankrupt, we have the building and the equipment." So it's just like when they expected us to go bankrupt, like this.
See you soon.
Yeah, see you soon. Yeah. And then in 2013, 14, we met, as you probably know, we met Distill Ventures, which has a cooperation with Diageo. And at that point of time, we were talking again about expanding. So we had been talking to banks. We were going to talk to banks. We had tried to find some rich guys, that maybe they'd sold a business and got a lot of money. We were discussing public shares. But then they came up, Distill Ventures, and they said, "We can loan you the money, with a good interest. We want to have some money back in, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 20 years. And we were like, well, we're actually not interested. And then I don't know, maybe they got a bit offended about that, saying that we said no. So they came back and back and back and back, and they really tried, to get through to us. So the money.
Sorry for interrupting, but did you say no because they were connected with Diageo? You were scared of it?
Yeah, they wanted they wanted the stock majority of the company. They wanted to own Stauning Whiskey, and we were not interested in that because it's our distillery. But more and more money came on the table, and the majority of the stocks, how we were going to divide that, went down. And so finally we were like, okay, let's sit down and have a chat about this, discuss this. And we said, as long as we can control the distillery, we would like your money. Please give us some money, but let us control the distillery. So we now have a contract together with Diageo and Distill Ventures where we control the distillery. All decisions are on our side. They had one thing, they had to have a person in our board. So we have one from Diageo sitting in our board that can say, that's a bad idea. And when they say that, and they haven't done that a lot of times, but when they say that, it's mainly because we're about to do a bad investment. So for example, if we want to buy casks somewhere, they're like, that's too expensive. We can get you a better deal on casks where you can save 30% on the casks.
Okay.
For example, when we had to buy 24 pot stills, we contacted Forsyth to build stills. And Diageo said, well, actually, we own Abercrombie that also makes stills. It's the world's oldest manufacturer of pot stills, Abercrombie. And we can give you a 35% discount on the pot stills. We were like,
so they make money about it, but at the same time, you can spare some change for
exactly. Yeah, a lot. We save a lot of money. A lot of money. And the major, the best thing about this is actually, and we didn't expect that. It is actually, imagine going out and getting money from a bank. You'll have some people sitting and expecting to get some money back, every year, or according to a plan, and they don't know anything about whiskey. They don't know about angel shares or devil's cuts or weather or climate or bad casks or leaking casks, stuff like that. They don't know about bad distillation or fermentation, so they can't help you if you have problems. But Diageo can actually help us. So some of the old guys working in Diageo, we talk about people that's been in the spirits business for 60, 70 years. When we contact them, if we have a problem, they travel to Denmark, we sit down and we discuss with them. It's people that's been born into the whiskey business. They can help us, and they can do it like this. That's much, much better than having a bank loaning you money that can't help you if anything goes wrong. Yeah. So, and I'm actually quite surprised that most of the people working, or we've been working with, is people like ourselves. They like whiskey. They like adventures. They like fun. They like to taste whiskey. They like to challenge, test. It's just people working in the whiskey business. It's quite fascinating, actually. So it's been good so far.
Will there be a day when there's Stauning inside one of these blends of Diageo or something like that? Is that possible? No.
No, I don't think so. If we choose to do so, it will be because we find.
But you have a choice.
Sorry.
You have a choice. You're not obliged with we want to do this now, and you have to do it. So that will never happen.
Yeah, I don't think so. But I'll never say never. You can do it with a single malt whiskey, do a blend with them or something.
There's a lot of. Then it will be your own choice.
Yeah, it will be our own choice. Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Super.
Okay. Another question. Photo is also the distillery, the warehouse, of course. The numbers. You said it will be around 1,000. Are they all numbered like this, or?
Yeah.
So number 1 is actually the first cask there is.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't.
Too easy.
So we started numbering after some years. I can't remember how many years that went by. So we started a number system, and we actually just took the warehouse and just started from an end. So the number 1 cask is not the first casks.
Okay.
And a fun story to that is actually that we sell our cask when we only use our cask one time, then we sell them. And we sold cask number 1 to a customer that makes beer. So we aged his beer in cask number 1. Then one of our customers were to visit that brewery, and he said, I was at this brewery and I saw cask number 1, Stauning whiskey cask number 1, just sitting at a brewery. Are you crazy? Like, it's not number 1. It's actually maybe number 59, that cask, but it has the number 1. So, but we sell them all to breweries, to people that can use them for different kinds of spirit or beer or aging.
Why do you choose to use the barrels only once?
We are as we are a young distillery. We want as much flavor as possible into our whiskies, at once. And we've tried to use them 2 times, and then you need to age it for many, many, many years. Some of it will go for many years, but most of it will only go for one time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Will there be an age statement in some years, about 10 years or 12-year-old this whiskey?
Probably will. Yeah,
okay.
Probably will. Yeah.
Okay. Then I have one final question. The name Chaos.
Yeah.
In Dutch, I presume it's Chaos, CH. What's about the name? It's.
So chaos is there's 2 reasons for chaos. The word chaos as a spirit is because it's a mix between different kinds of whiskies from the distillery. So if you imagine a chaos batch is 6 casks. Mm-hmm. 3 of the casks will be a rye whiskey. 1 of the casks will be a single malt, non-smoked, and 2 of the casks will be a smoked single malt. So 3 different kinds of whiskies going together in one batch. That's our chaos. But the name actually started from an old Danish prime minister, most famous Danish prime minister. His name is Thorvald Stauning. And that's not why we're called Stauning. It's because of the village Stauning. But it's a social democratic. And in 1931, as I remember, there was an election in Denmark. And his election slogan was choose Stauning or get chaos, in Denmark. We just think it's a fantastic slogan. Choose Stauning or get chaos. That's us.
Yeah.
Now, as we say on the label, you now get chaos. Stauning and chaos. It's not either or. It's you're both. You get both now. It's a very special whiskey. I enjoy it. Actually, I enjoy it a lot.
Okay, you have a new fan, I see. Dimitri loves the philosophy, and has to try the new make. I will make sure you can try it in a while, Dimitri. So, Johan, do you have any other questions for Alex?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay, I have one thing to mention for the viewers. Next Wednesday we have Florent Bouchet. It's quite different than the whiskey we are talking about today. It's about rum. So Florent will be there, and next Saturday it will be Rosalind from the Gallic Whiskey. Johan knows her very well. And then the week after that it's Matt Healy, and I'm really looking forward to that chat, and Paul Dempsey. Once again, I'm looking forward to that chat. And then thereafter, it's Hans Offringa and Nick Binderer. Alex, do you know Hans Offringa?
Yes, I know him. Yeah, exactly.
He talks Dutch, but he isn't Flemish, so we can't say it's one of ours. But he's a great writer. He's a great writer, and
yes, he is. Certainly is. Yeah, exactly.
So, we do something every show. First of all, big thanks for being here. I quite enjoyed myself talking to you. Johan, thanks a lot as well for being here and talking about Stauning in the beginning, especially in the beginning.
Sorry about that.
No problem. Johan did a very good job, so he knows what he's talking about. So I think he thinks he tries to sell your stuff. I don't know.
Not at all. It sells itself.
No, but we always end up. The last few weeks we end up with our guests saying the last word. So Johan and I will be seeing you in the back. So don't go away whenever we stop broadcasting. So we have a little chat afterwards. Chat. Sorry, it was quite different said that way. So you have the last word for the viewers. So I have already removed Johan. So thank you very much, Alex, and I'll see you in a bit. And it's all.
Oh, thank you very much. I hope to see you soon. I hope to see you in Denmark. I can promise you, if you come to Denmark, you will see a very, very fascinating and very different distillery from what you've seen anywhere else in the world. Enjoy.